Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this tutorial we're going to take a look at overloading the dereference operator, star or asterisk. So I thought it'd be interesting just to take a look at overloading an operator that seems slightly wackier than the ones we've seen so far, although there are plenty of wacky operators to overload. And this is just a really quick example of what we can do. So complex numbers have this concept of a complex conjugate. And what the conjugate is it's the same number, but you flip the sign on the imaginary part. So if it's positive, you make it negative. If it's negative, you make it positive. And the symbol that's often used for that, at least in physics, is you put a star on the, like an asterisk, on the right-hand side of the complex number as a superscript. So I thought that looks a bit like the dereference operator, except it's on the wrong side. Were it not for that, it would be perfect. But nevertheless, it might be fun just to overload the dereference operator to give us the complex conjugate. So how would we do that? Well, the easiest thing to do is to start by Googling code. Google for overload dereference operator C++, or if you don't know the name of it, if you didn't know the name of it, you could just type star or something and eventually you'd find some sample code. And if you think about what this actually is, it's normally used on pointers, and from a pointer it returns an actual object. So we can sort of work out anyway from first principles what it's going to look like if we think about it a bit. So we're going to have an operator here that's going to return an object. It's not going to change the object that it's applied to. It's going to return a new object. And let's say so we've got a new object that we're returning. It's not going to be a reference. It's not const. It's a brand new object. And we're going to say operator star like this, and we need the brackets there, and we can certainly make it const. So let's just copy this prototype here, go to the CPP file, and somewhere down here at an appropriate point, let's get rid of that to do while we're at it, because otherwise it's going to appear in my tasks list here. So to implement this, we can just return a complex number, a new one, which has the same real part, same imaginary part, except that we flip the sign on the imaginary part by putting a negative there. And of course we have to make sure that we say it's a member of complex. So now if we do that in our main file here, this should give us the conjugate of this. In other words, since we've got a positive imaginary part, we should now have a negative imaginary part. Let's just run that. And there we go, we've got the complex conjugate successfully. And now we've implemented all these operators, we should even be able to do stuff like this. We could add on a new complex number, let's say 4, 3. That should work. If we run this, we get 6 and minus 1, because we've added together 2 and 4, and minus 4 and 3, which gives us minus 1. We could even take the conjugate of this right after we've constructed it, which is going to give us 6, and minus 4 and minus 3 is minus 7. So we can build up complex expressions. The only thing to watch out for is operator precedence, because sometimes you can overload some operators and then you string them together in expressions and you find that they don't apply with the precedence that you expect. So here it's applying the dereference operator, which has quite a high precedence, before it does the plus, but you could construct expressions where the operator that you apply is applied after some other operator that you expect to be applied after itself. So sometimes in complex expressions with lots of operator overloading, you need to put brackets in around the relevant operators to force them to execute first. So that's something to watch out for, which you might run across. So I think we'll probably leave it there for this section. If you want some practice, one thing you can do is implement any operators you can think of. If you know about complex numbers at all, implement any operators that I've missed out. You can also, it's really good practice to try implementing some really wacky operators. For example, you can overload the round brackets like this, and you can overload square brackets, the array subscript operator. So if you want a bit of a challenge, you could try overloading those, and it's actually not uncommon to overload those operators, the round and square brackets. You have to think of a meaning, something that makes sense to you. And then the easy thing to do is try to Google for sample code, where you might just be able to work out how to do that from basic principles, and go ahead and overload them. So that's well worth having a go at. Another thing that I'd recommend that you do, if you haven't already, is Google for a list of C++ operators, and Google for a list that shows you which ones can't be overloaded, because there are some that can't be overloaded, but there's quite a small number of those. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Until next time, happy coding.